pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are the mics on?
Okay.
It's like me remembering names.
Mary's going to take minutes tonight.
All right.
So we have MJ, Beth Waterman, Mary Herman, Robert Cruikshank, and Mark Lodi present. And Angel is present on Zoom. Angel Molina. So Mark, if you want to move up here, there's an empty seat and then Angel can see you.
I guess I could.
Okay. All right, so our first bit of business is the approval of the minutes from March, which I sent out with the meeting notice. Does anyone have any changes or corrections? Can I have a motion to accept the minutes, please?
A motion to accept the minutes?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you. Membership items and announcements. Okay, I sent out the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency newsletter to everyone, and I printed a copy because there is just so much useful information in here about what they have for sale, their household hazardous waste events, and all the classes that they're having, as well as, let's see what else is in here. Well, other events that they're doing, and the spring repair cafes. It's a really valuable resource, and I recommend that you sign up to get it, get on their mailing list, look at their website. It's really very informative. We have a new bulletin board at the recycling center. I don't know if anyone saw it on your way in, but we'll go out afterwards and admire it. Thanks to Bruce Berry, the Mr. Do It Yourself.
Thank you, Bruce, Mr. Do It.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
And so now we have an official area in which to post our events.
Great.
Yes. And I also sent out an email to everyone about this municipal webinar that's on Tuesday, April 25th, for elected officials and municipal volunteers and so forth. The subject is the climate plan and building electrification in New York. So if you're interested, you can sign up for the Zoom for that webinar on April 25th.
Which is a Tuesday as well? Yeah.
Let's see, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Committee reports. Mary.
Well, today we had our first compost class at the Pine Hill Community Center, and there were 19 or 20 in attendance, which was pretty awesome. And it was very informative and enjoyed by all.
Yeah, I think everyone was very engaged, and it was the first time that Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency had come out to Western Ulster. So it was groundbreaking in many ways.
Yes.
So to speak.
And, hey, Michael, hello.
That's okay.
There's a space right here for it with the microphone. So.
And so there'll be a follow-up class, advanced composting, on May 9th, correct?
I think so, it was in the minutes, but, yeah, May 9th.
Yes.
And because we have our new bulletin board, I think there's, because we have our new bulletin board down there, we can post the flyers. the people who came, we had an opportunity to ask them how they found out about the composting class, and there were people from West Shokan and Margaretville and, you know, and everywhere in between. And some of them had seen it at the recycling center, so.
And also on the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency's website, they post their calendar of classes. So they have them all over the county, so maybe some people, because of their work schedule or whatever, you can always attend a different one. But-
Yeah. Yeah, so it was well-attended, and I'm very grateful to the Pine Hill Community Center for hosting it. So May 9th will be the class on advanced composting. Believe me, there's a lot to learn about advanced composting.
And I thought I knew composting, but I learned
Yeah.
quite a few things.
I knew composting would be so much fun.
Yes, it is. New
Yeah.
and,
She was
new
great.
and
She was
improved.
very enthusiastic and very, her choice of words is very enlightening, you know, with an upbeat.
Yeah, she was knowledgeable. The first week of May is Compost Awareness Week. And the class that we are sponsoring, the Conservation Advisory Council is sponsoring, is on Tuesday, May 9th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And I have copies of this poster if anyone wants to take it and put it up. I'm going to give it to Mike.
No problem. I'll put it up in the banner.
I think the post office, you have only one?
No, I probably have more here. I have different posters. I have this one also.
Then the post office.
Yeah. And Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency is selling compost. They sell it by the ton or by the bag. All this information is on their website, but, you know, they have an active resource recovery program, and I regret that I've never been to visit it. I know we talked about doing that once or twice,
Yeah.
and we could never quite find a time that we were all available. So I'm gonna look into it a little more and see if, maybe if they have a time when we can just,
Do go individually or go as,
no, if they're giving a group tour,
Right,
if we
that's
can,
what I mean,
yeah, yeah. Okay. How about the Comprehensive Plan Committee? Mary and MJ.
Mary would have more to report on.
Well, we had our second meeting, because our official second meeting was snowed out, so, last week, and I think we have a really great group of people with a lot of talent on that committee and a lot of enthusiasm. So we talked about, getting together the survey. We're gonna work on that while we try to get grants to get, to hire planners to assist us, because it can be a little, you kind of need a professional facilitator when you're having meetings with the public. They kind of help to move things along better. And so we're gonna be working on taking in, public input, having, we're gonna get a website through the town. I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna work, but we're gonna have like a tab, so it's just gonna be a page dedicated to us. And hopefully we'll be able to post things on the website, and people can interact that way. So, you know, I think it's exciting.
Yeah, good for you. That's great. Rob, do you have anything to report?
I do. I'm going to speak a little bit about our conversation with Peter on the 10th about the building audits.
Okay, well, just turn the,
Okey-dokey. So on April 10th, Supervisor Peter Disclafani, myself, and Beth met to discuss, and Angel, met to discuss the municipally owned and town subsidized, if you will, buildings, to try to understand, you know, what is the energy usage of these structures and how might that be changed in the future. So we decided in the meeting that we should get an energy audit on the buildings, and the buildings we identified were the Museum in Pine Hill, the town hall here that we're in, the fire department, the highway department garage next door, the library in Pine Hill, the police department, the recycling center, which is rather small, the two water department buildings, one in Pine Hill and one in Phoenicia, which is larger, the Medical Arts Center, and then the Medic Building in Phoenicia. So I think that's 10. But one of the things that was very helpful was Peter sharing that he knew what the heat source was in each of those buildings. So as we think about oil and waste oil and propane and electric, kind of how that fuel mix could change as we go forward based on recommendations that come out of the energy audit. So I have the action to actually call up and speak to the folks that did the library in Pine Hill, the Historical Museum in PineLl energy audit, who were very helpful. And I'll
Have
look
they
to-
done an energy audit at the museum?
That was the one that we shared a few meetings back. Where
No,
we-
that was the
Oh, I
library.
thought it was the library, too.
I may have that wrong. Okay.
Yeah, the library was the one that you followed up on. That, I don't believe the
Okay.
Historical Museum has done an energy audit yet.
Okay, I was thinking the wrong facility.
Yeah.
But they were very helpful when they did it. They revised their energy audit numbers for us because they had
Yes.
used a price of fuel oil of like $3 a gallon. And we said, well, what is it? It's $6. Because a lot of us were, paying 6 plus in this winter. And so that's when they came back with, like a 2-year payback to change the heating system from oil to a heat pump.
Nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll continue down that for the rest of the buildings. Thank you for the correction. And I think that's it for now.
Do you have any report from Ulster County Emergent Environmental Management
Management
Council,
Council.
EMC?
Yeah, I attended the last meeting that the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency participated in and, learned a bunch about what they're doing for recycling, but I didn't have any actions to take back to this group.
Okay. At the meeting at the end of March, there was a presentation by Patterns for Progress about electric vehicle charging.
Thank you, yes, and Bruce Barry and I both attended that.
Yeah,
It was really very well done, and Bruce had said it was going to be. This was his second time attending. So there was quite a bit of information around, where are electric vehicle charging stations within the whole county, and actually adjoining counties as well. And if you look at some of the metrics, like, well, how many electric vehicles are there? So what's the charging station per capita? That gets to be very interesting.
Yeah.
And we actually had a follow-up call with the county and said, could you help us in our planning for electric vehicles here in
Yeah.
Shandaken, particularly on the Route 28 corridor?
right.
And that was helpful because, we kind of got a sense of the kinds of criteria that they have to even be able to put something in. For example, you need to have cell phone access to the charging station so that it can call the mothership
Yeah.
to do things like authentication for charging and maintenance requests when it's down and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. And then, are you going to report on the follow-on visits that we did
I
here
will.
and the picture taking you did?
I will.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Bruce and I met with an engineer and someone else, possibly a sales manager from ING or IHG. It's a company that is based in Newburgh and installs electric vehicle chargers. And Bruce met them at a mixer he went to that was sponsored by Partners, Hudson Valley Partners for Climate Action. And we went on a tour of the possible sites in Shandaken where we might locate chargers on municipal property. So we started in Phoenicia, and we went to the M.F. Whitney Hose Company, which is a possible site. It's within fairly easy walking distance, it's a block away from Main Street. And we evaluated that, and then we went to the Medical Arts Building where there's, also there are 2 buildings there with different purposes. One is the ambulance headquarters and the other is the Medical Arts Building. And it's a possibility to site a EV charger there, but it will negatively affect the parking for the Medical Arts Building. So I'm not sure about whether that would be the primary site in Phoenicia. And as Robert just said, the lack of cell service in Phoenicia is a big detriment. They need cell service in order to serve the software and the downloads and the uploads and the charge card and all that needs to operate on cell service. Now, if they had Wi-Fi there, I don't know if that would be adequate. I really would have to ask Bruce.
These are signals from the chargers themselves.
When you say the signals, what do you mean?
Well, you said you needed Wi-Fi access or.
Well,
The signals
it has
from where?
software. The charging.
Within the charger.
Charging unit runs with software that is, when you access, you pay and all that all has to be
Well, for example,
connected.
to record the credit card charges, for
Yeah,
example.
exactly.
Yeah.
To use the credit
Put it
card,
back in.
yeah. And then we went up to Pine Hill, where the Pine Hill Community Center, next to the Pine Hill Community Center is the municipal parking lot. And that area did have 2 bars of cell service, and I think the Pine Hill Community Center has a large supply
Electrical
of
service.
electricity. I don't know how to describe this, but they
Yeah.
have, there's a
got a-
lot of electricity there.
Yeah, it's got a commercial installation from the prior facility, manufacturing facility was
Right.
there. It has 480 volt service and multiple panels.
So that site seemed to be preferable for those 2 reasons, the cell service and it's already served by a large supply. So then, but we didn't know when we went on the tour that we needed access to the buildings. So we went on a Monday morning or I don't know, whatever day we went, the Pine Hill Community Center was closed, and of course, no one was at the firehouse. So we had to go back and take photos of the electrical panels for the engineer then to assess, and they are going to come back to us with some ballpark numbers for what these installations might cost. So,
And what was the name of the company again?
well, put in INR, but I don't think that's
Okay.
right, and I'll update it.
Okay.
Mary, or someone told me that they have a charger at Peekamoose now.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I went there to eat dinner last night and didn't eat dinner because they changed their hours to summer hours. But we noticed on our way in that there was a car plugged in.
Oh, I think that might be the owner's car.
Oh,
I'm not sure
really?
if it's a public,
Oh.
don't quote me, I'm not sure if it's a public or not, but I know the Shandaken Inn has one.
Yeah.
Right,
And
And I-
that one is public.
right.
Oh, well, we should not be putting this information out on the
Okay.
airwaves.
Well, let's see,
It's just one.
subject to verification.
Where, at the Shandaken
Yes.
Inn?
Yeah.
It's a
a
single
dual.
unit, that one is public.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a dual, it's a single tombstone, I think they call it,
Yeah.
with 2 charging ports.
Yeah,
But I'm pretty sure they don't have cell service,
Oh.
like anywhere else in the area, so I'm guessing
They must
they
have
have
Wi-Fi,
Wi-Fi, right,
yeah.
exactly, so I'm betting
That
you need one or the other to make this thing
Okay.
work.
That's very interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there is cell service that recently got turned on there,
Oh, okay.
from the, where the gravel pit is behind the
Yeah,
police
that's what
department.
I think they can get it because of the
But
tower
not, it's only
there.
AT&T, I believe, so it might be the carrier that they could use or whatever.
Yeah, because usually when I charge, I need some sort of Wi-Fi service to, because it needs to read my card or just like I sign up for these things, so you just
Yeah.
kind of,
yeah.
but yeah.
Well, so that's where we are. The purpose of this planning and investigation is to eventually to make a proposal to the town board for them to consider, with some numbers attached.
Was there consideration between, you said primary, like, are you looking to sit one in the best place, or one in Pine Hill and one in Phoenicia, or? what?
That's what we were thinking.
Yes.
Okay,
One in Phoenicia one and Pine Hill. And, you know, when they get back to us with the numbers, then I think we'll be in a better position to,
Yeah, one probably won't
Evaluate.
be enough to service the needs going forward.
no, but we gotta
Maybe
start
start
somewhere.
I wonder if Order has plans at Bel Air.
Good question.
You would think that they would.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Speaking of questions, either Mary or in terms of what our committee is also, that we do need cell service, right? We need cell service coverage for these EV charging stations, and I guess it would be part of the comprehensive plan as well to try to get cell service so that all these other things fall in place. Is that something that also the town is considering in the comprehensive plan about?
Well,
increasing
sure,
cell
but
service in the area?
but I believe in addition to the comprehensive plan, of course, would include that. I believe the supervisor has been working on that since day one, because nothing was done for a long time.
I think the answer is
So that's
yes, it's been
independent
quite
of
a
what
long
you
time.
guys are doing,
Yeah.
and we would tie into what we're.
But the comprehensive plan, like, the supervisor's work would probably come before the comprehensive plan is finished. But we can check with him, definitely, see where it's at.
And it just seems so interdependent with what we're trying to accomplish, that I think that it's sort of folded into whatever we're trying to recommend from our committee, but more importantly as well with the comprehensive plan.
Exactly.
Which is what
Yeah, and,
What Angela just said has been true for a decade.
yes,
more than,
yeah. For a while, they were working with AT&T, and then that work got dropped.
Well, you know, the usual objection is lack of population density.
Right,
It's not
exactly.
possible.
And that's why the letter was sent out by businesses and people just recently, because to the county and other powers to help us, because rural people really need it. And I know there's even, I was speaking with a merchant in Phoenicia, and she can't take credit cards because she doesn't have cell phones or Wi-Fi in her store. You know, it's, come on,
well,
you know.
I think Margaretville Telephone is in the process of wiring Wi-Fi in Phoenicia and Pine Hill.
Correct, but you still have to pay for it.
Right.
Who
You know,
actually
so-
would pay for it, the municipality?
Well, cell phone service, you don't have to pay for, but Wi-Fi you do. So if you want to take credit cards, you have to pay for the Wi-Fi,
Right, so they
you
need
know?
to-
So it's a, you know, and if you're a
It's a
small
business.
business, you know, then you're paying 3% on top of that, it starts to add up.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is the second quarter of the 21st century, so.
I know, but, no, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't disagree that we really need it. But I don't want to speak for the supervisor, I just know he's working on it.
You know, I want to make the observation that in terms of the EV vehicles, there was discussion in some of these previous meetings about the carbon footprint of our municipal service vehicle fleet.
Correct.
And how Eric was saying that the battery charge is, you know, for like a snowplow, for example, is only for like half an hour, something like that. So it's literally totally impractical and way too
At this
expensive.
point.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention that California recently passed a law saying that their state municipal service fleet has to be completely electrified by 2035.
Okay.
So,
That's good to
anyway,
know.
moving that direction,
Yeah.
glacially.
Right, no, I'm sure that it will affect us in the same way, but at this moment, there are no vehicles that
Yeah.
Eric feels can satisfy the needs in this mountainous and cold
Yeah.
climate.
Well, typically in the automobile and the automotive industry, whatever laws are passed in California, because such a huge automotive market, that is reflected in the entire industry, so.
No, and they are working now on vehicles, you know, heavy equipment that will be electrified.
Yeah. Hopefully before 2035.
Yeah, but if we can just, I mean, yeah, at our last meeting, we talked about the Government Operations Climate Action Plan, and we had a meeting about the transportation sector in which we discussed what vehicles might be upgraded to electric vehicles, and it was more of the passenger sorts of you know,
Like police cars.
yeah, local vehicles, but not the heavy equipment.
Not the snowplows and things like that.
Not yet.
Not yet. But, you know, I will be very pleased if I see any electric vehicles in the town of Shandaken fleet, whether they be passengers or anything.
The beater
And a
cars.
charger station, please.
With regard to the question about charging at Bel Air, I was on the Orda website last week, and the link to the current management plan appears to be broken. You know, they say, click here for the management plan, and and it says link broken. But the prior plan was up, which is, you know, a couple of years back, but it did show that they were intending to put in charging stations for electric vehicles. So I imagine the new plan has it, once we get our hands on it, we can confirm that.
Great.
So Robert brought up the meeting he attended, which was the Government Operations Climate Action Plan facilities. So how we can make our facilities greener. When we did the greenhouse gas inventory, which I think all of you have a copy, it identified the sources and the highest emissions of greenhouse gases. And by far the transportation fleet was the highest. And then the second highest was the water facilities. Because the pumps use a lot of electricity. And in our discussions about how we can make the town buildings more energy efficient and less emitting fewer greenhouse gases, it appears that the water facilities are going to be very difficult for us to really make a dent, because those pumps are going to keep pumping water. We can't reduce the usage. We certainly wouldn't want to do that. And the buildings themselves are very small and, you know, not particularly heated, or, I mean, I'm sure they're heated, but they're not using much energy in the building itself. But this building and the highway garage are a different matter. In these buildings, we could make improvements. We could, for instance, insulate the highway garage. And that would save a lot of fuel oil that is used to heat the highway garage. But it's in the floodplain. It's in the floodway, which is right in the middle of the flood. We are in the floodplain in this building. So as far as putting investment in terms of clean energy in these two buildings, it seems slightly ridiculous.
Well,
But that led us-
relocate this building.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the main thing that we discussed was the possibility of finding a new location for the town offices, and then using our efforts to improve those facilities. So
And
that's the update. That was my other follow-up on that meeting that we attended.
I think the one other thing that came out of it was, if we do energy audits, which we think are going to be free, so they're not going to cost the town anything, on these buildings, including the two you just mentioned, you know, they, as part of the energy audit, they come out with a set of energy conservation and energy efficiency measures, and we can look to see which of those are funded and which are not very expensive, which have a good payback. Because to your point, we don't want to sink money in where the building, you know, won't be
Right.
used, but if there's something that has a very short payback, it might make sense to do it. Or if it's paid for by some other program, it might make
Yeah.
sense to do it.
But I think at that meeting, Peter did say that it's very difficult to get grants for buildings that are in the floodplain.
He did.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that limits us considerably.
It's like tying our hands behind our back.
Right, I know. So, I mean, our efforts with this Government Operations Climate Action Plan are, you know, they're sort of teetering. We can't really make conclusions and say, well, in the next 5 years, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z if we don't have a secure location. So I'm a little discouraged about that. But we will proceed. Catherine's not here to talk about natural resource inventory, and the pollinator pathway issue is interesting, and I continue to go to some of those webinars, but I don't think that we're going to undertake any particular work in that direction. as a group here. I did also want to mention that the towns submitted an application to the O'Connor Foundation to start the food waste recycling program. We haven't heard back from them.
That's to purchase the container or?
That's to purchase a different type, it's not a storage unit or container. It is what they use in the national parks. It's from a website called Barracuda. And
I'm gonna take that note down.
Barricuda, and they have an amazing collection of different receptacles. And this receptacle is metal, and it has a place for two 30-gallon drums, yeah. And so that was, and it's not terribly big. It would fit within the chain link fence, I believe. So we'll see if we get the money. And then it would also purchase another composting machine for the farmer to use to process all the food scraps. So that's the purpose of the.
That would help with the volume.
And pending the results of that, we'll keep trying. Keep working on it.
We'll encourage more backyard composting with
Well,
our new skills.
Yeah.
Well, that was one thing that I thought was interesting, is that there was a concern about animals, like bears are a real big issue. But the comment was simply, if you chop up the food in a way that you also mix in the brown and the green, so that's not that palatable for animals. It's not, you don't have as big of an animal problem. So I thought that was, as an individual composter, I'm definitely going to be looking at that.
Yeah. Well, and of course, they also recommended no dairy, no oil, no meat.
Right,
No fish.
Right.
And so, it was
Oh, please, no
That-
fish.
kind of restricted menu.
And and she touched on freezing it.
Yes.
And then afterwards, I spoke with her, because when I have guests at my house, in the winter, if they can't make it out to the compost bin, or they just don't want to, we tell them to put it in the freezer. And I also had saved my old wood stove insert, and I put it in there. And it seems to break it down really quickly, and the bear doesn't want to eat it.
Yeah.
Because actually, my backyard, we found out, there's a bear that's his pathway on the way to town. And so he's always cutting through my backyard. And he had his way a few times with my tumbler. So I got this idea about this wood stove. And I asked her about it, if that was detrimental to get it hot. And she told me not at all. She said if you freeze it, or what I'm doing is cooking it, and it not only makes it not palatable for the bear or the other animals, but it speeds up the composting. So, and because we found out that in Pine Hill that we attracted raccoons with pineapples and bananas.
Yeah.
So we always freeze that first and then put it out. And we bury it, make sure you
Yeah.
bury it and use the right ratios.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
quite certain about not leaving anything on top and doing it in concentrated batches. So instead of just throwing a little bit in every day, put a lot in at one time and stockpile it. and
Yeah,
freeze
fill
it.
up your bucket.
Yeah.
Don't just go out there because you had a banana.
Anyway, the next one is gonna be even more interesting. You can really nerd out on this stuff.
Question for Mary. A couple meetings ago, we mentioned that there's such a huge population density of short-term rental. And so, hundreds of those people visiting every weekend that know nothing about composting.
Right.
You mentioned that in Vermont, they passed a law that the short-term rental people have to be instructed to how to
Yes,
compost.
everybody has to compost in Vermont. And they're not like policing your garbage, so if you go to the transfer station, they're not gonna rip it open. But it's been a tremendous success.
You said there
and-
were state guidelines that were issued?
And there are guidelines, yes. And you could, actually, it was funny because when we were planning this class, and I looked it up online, they all kind of use Cornell's, the same base educational thing. And they, both Vermont and Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. So,
Those guidelines are on.
yeah, so those
Vermont
guys,
State
yeah,
website somewhere?
yes, and then, but it, what I'm saying is then it brought me, like I read the footnotes, because I can be a real geek. And it brought me right back to Cornell, and they kind of formulated all of it, you know, so,
Okay, great.
yeah. But we learned a lot today, and I thought I knew a lot about home composting, and I learned a lot more. And it's it's really doable, but Vermont's has been such a great success because they expected it to cut their landfills by 25%, and I think it's 35 or 40%, it's made that much of a difference. But, and as Rob knows.
Everybody plays.
They also have an awesome transfer station there too, and it's a couple of bays. And the composting bay, they have all these, just the rollout garbage pails, and it gets full and they push it to the back until the service picks it up. And they have just the whole front of it electrified, so it keeps the bears out. Yeah.
One thing I learned today that I thought was interesting was that those compostable containers, that sometimes if you take food out from a restaurant, it says it's compostable, they don't compost.
No.
Ulster County Resource Recovery
Yeah.
Agency has found that it takes forever for
Yeah,
them to
they do, but,
deteriorate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And,
And it has to be 200 degrees or higher to actually
Yeah.
start breaking
Yeah.
down. And
and,
most composts are 160 degrees.
right,
max.
exactly.
Right.
At 200 degrees, it's detrimental to the insects and microbes that are doing the work, so. So that was interesting. And she said that the Biodegradable Products Institute, BPI, if it's stamped BPI compostable, then that means that it probably
to know.
is
Believable.
compostable. But otherwise, if it just says
BPI is
compostable,
believable.
it doesn't compost.
That's what the fee's for.
So it's interesting, because
Yeah.
it's to the point where if you really want to take food home from a restaurant, you should bring your own container.
Container, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do people do that at,
They, no, haven't seen that happen. And, we get, there's a bunch of transients, so they're not normally carrying something that they're gonna,
Right.
go all the way home with, but.
yeah,
But it is, I've heard that comment a few times about, the best thing to do would be to show up with something
yeah.
that you could put the food into, as well.
I traveled with a woman last year who had one. It was a telescoping silicone container, and she had it in her purse all the time. And every time we went to a restaurant, she
That's a great idea.
put all the food
Right.
back into this thing, it fit back in her purse, and I've never seen, I'll find out where you can get them.
I feel like, we should sell them.
Yeah, I know.
We'll get it go, so make a
Make a statement.
make a statement on it,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing they said that I thought was interesting was not to add worms. You don't need
I
to
know.
add worms to your compost, but you actually let the worms that are indigenous to the area come and don't bring in other worms. Because then you get in a plethora of worms, number one, and also may not be natural. She said there's like only 3 types of worms. There's like over 1,000 different types of worms, and there's only 3 or 4 that are actually that break down the compost. So let them come from the soil itself and find their way naturally to get into the
Yeah, because I was
soil.
all about buying worms.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, if there are no other subjects for that people want to discuss,
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn at 7:11. I'll just say before, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
This is a year since we got started.
Wow.
And-
When's your anniversary?
And I mean, we've done a lot. I've certainly learned a lot, all the various, with the assistance of Melanie and others who, come to our aid. And we have a bulletin board on the recycling center. That's our. Let's go see it. Yeah, let's go
That's
see
our
it.
landing spot.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.